He said, to teach mathematicians physics is like to teach horses to fly.
So does math itself cause you negative emotions or not really?
It was a summer of 2002. I feel very helpless in applying mental faculties to non-math questions. We were driving and we saw this mother hyena running with a big hunk of meat hanging from her mouth. I guess I learned how to watch horse races on TV, something like that.
Hi, welcome to Math Life Balance. Today our guest is Dennis Gaitsgory, professor at Max Planck Institute for Mathematics, working on Langlands program, and also my good friend. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you.
So the first question is the question that I ask everyone, and I'm also curious about you. Could you tell us what brought you into mathematics?
When I was in high school, I got interested in physics, but in the guise of physics Olympiads, high school physics, but which I found very fascinating and wanted to just continue in physics. But so when my family moved to Israel, it turned out that the university had a program for high schoolers to take classes at the university, but only in math, not in physics. It was this wonderful man, Ben Orbel, organized it. And then kind of in later years, it expanded to all kinds of disciplines, but early 90s, it was only math. And my dad said, okay, just go study math for a couple of years. For him, it was very important that they learn functional analysis. He thought it's like the cornerstone and everything. I said, sure, yeah, why not? So I went, and there, so on day one, I met this evil person, Sasha Braverman, who he didn't do anything. I don't think he did it intentionally, but he completely seduced me. Like after 2 months, I didn't want to hear about physics anymore. So it was all math, and that's it.
And were you later at some point interested in physics or going back to physics?
Well, I guess you personally know the story. So my kind of more serious encounter with physics was, I guess that was 7 years later, maybe less, 6. So there was this program at Princeton, at IAS, run by Witten as a head tutor for mathematicians to teach mathematicians quantum field theory. As one of the instructors at this program, Krzysztof Gaitsgory, he said, to teach mathematicians physics is like to teach horses to fly. Yet some horses learn to fly, so they were not supposed to be any graduate students, but somehow Pasha Etingov and David Kazdan arranged for Sasha Braverman, Roman Bezrukavnikov, and myself to attend, although we didn't have our PhDs then. So we functioned as postdocs, even though we were pre-docs. But anyway, so there were the three of us basically right out of teenagerhood attending this. And I remember the first class. So Witten starts his talk, like, consider the 3-point function. And I was like, what? I never heard of such thing. So it was super tough. So we learned something. But I was, like, in retrospect, having been exposed to physics during that year, I'm so glad that I switched to math.
Would you say that you learned how to fly?
No. I guess I learned how to watch horse races on TV, something like that. So I kind of know which horse is, well, in this analogy, which horse is winning, or at least which horse is white, which horse is black. I can relate to what commentators are saying.
Okay, this is funny. Yeah, I think mathematicians have very different attitude towards physics, and I know those who are like extremely interested in physics, and I know those who have zero interest to physics.
So curiously, out of this program, so Sasha Braverman, well, I guess during that year he learned as much as I did, but in 20 years later, he started interacting with physicists much more. So a lot of his papers are physics motivated. And I guess that year played an important role, maybe in some covert way for him. So I'm sure that well, I don't know, but like, I'm guessing that's what he received that year was important for him for his later interaction with physicists. But like, so he became one of those people who can interface with physicists. And unfortunately, just overall, there are very few bilingual people who really understand physics and really understand math. So it's a fact of life. I mean, understand math as mathematicians. I mean, many physicists know know math better than mathematicians do, but they're not mathematicians. They think differently. There are very few people who are kind of by thinkers, because, and I think maybe there is an objective reason for that. It's just hard. These are very different modes of thinking.
Do you know how to describe these different modes, or it's a mystery?
So let me just give two examples. So I remember a class during that year, which was taught by Krzysztof Gaitsgory. So it was about conformal field theory. It's a class where I, and also I think Sasha, learned a lot. So, but at some point he launched these computations, I think with theta functions or something. And there was some resistance from the audience, like not the resistance, kind of incomprehension, and saying that, guys, you're mathematicians, you should be happy with this. So he thought that if we see these formulas with theta functions, we'd be happy. But that's not what makes us happy. So most of mathematicians, we want to understand structures. And that's, so basically, okay, let me just, I'll convey a model that I created back then, so which was 30 years ago, which was pretty raw, and I hadn't returned to it. So basically, for a physicist, there exists a physical reality, even for a field theory that only exists in theory. So like something in 5 dimensions, which something potentially doesn't converge. But a physicist imagines that there is some physical reality. What the physicist wants to do is to compute with it. So he has a picture of physics and the computational outcome. But and the physicist is happy with that. But a mathematician wants to exactly understand what's in between. So the structure that leads from one to another. See, in quantum mechanics, we don't want just these scalars that come out. We are interested in the Hilbert space. And so Hilbert space is exactly that kind of structure. But that was already more than 100 years ago. And so there's obviously need for new math that will adequately kind of accommodate physics the same way as Hilbert spaces accommodate quantum mechanics at its inception, but such math apparently doesn't yet exist. And so that's a big struggle.
I see, I understand. So getting back to your story of the talks, I wanted to ask you, what makes you like a math talk?
I listened to Dustin's interview yesterday. Ultimately, I want to understand something. So when this speaker is able to convey to me some content, not a whole lot, just a little bit, I'm happy to understand one thing out of a talk, to really walk out with something that I didn't have. So that already makes me happy.
That's exactly the quote from Ravi Vakil's interview.
Oh, really? No, I didn't watch that.
Yes, so it's funny how I was very impressed when he said that, and now I'm impressed again.
So let me just say that, like, one of my favorite speakers is Jacob Lurie, because invariably, so by the way, his style of delivering talks is very different from Dustin's. That you praised in Dustin's interview. He doesn't delve into details, but he does make jokes, but he tries to convey content. But so he pitches at a level which is you can't be too precise, especially in homotopy theory, but in most cases he finds a way to convey content and not obscure it by details. So that's what I really like. In earlier years, so when Drinfeld gave not a lot of talks, he was giving talks, I really enjoyed his style also.
Wow. When I was preparing the questions yesterday, my friend saw the questions and he said, there is priming in this question. What if he doesn't like any math talks?
It's not very often that I like math talks, but some I do like a lot.
And okay, more generally, I was curious, what are your most joyful or happy moments in math?
I don't think I have spikes of joy in math. Rather, when I'm left to my own devices, when just have the time and space to do math, that makes me happy. Just the process of like lying on my side and just scribbling something and thinking about something that makes me happy. It's like it's not this kind of momentary exhilaration or something. It's a pastime that makes me profoundly happy. And And when there are periods in my life when I don't have access to it, I just, over weeks, I become very miserable that something was really missing.
So is your brain always ready to do math, or how is it for you?
No, unfortunately not. So, no, like there are periods when I'm like sleep deprived and I just don't sleep too well. Last 2 weeks, it was good. So in much better shape. And sometimes I'm overcome by anxiety over this or over that, and just I can't focus. There are periods like this, but there are happier periods when my brain is more kind of ready, and these are truly happier periods.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. And so does math itself cause you negative emotions or not really?
So there have been instances. So when it did happen, so I remember there was one conjecture it was conjecture of mine that I made, and it's called localization of affine algebras critical level, the affine Grassmannian. And I thought that it's kind of within reach. So it was a summer of 2002. So I tried to make a push for it. I went all in. So let me try to do it. And I wasn't able to. And I got extremely frustrated. So basically, ever since, there's some self-protective mechanism that I turns on that prevents me from doing such things. Like when you want to prove something, don't necessarily go all in, because it really might end in frustration. But back then I did it. I was much younger, and it was frustration. So I became depressed. Well, I don't know, not clinically depressed, but I remember it was a month. I would wake up and didn't know what to do with myself. I would just I didn't have internet at home. I would just go to the office just to check my email, drive back. I really didn't know what to do with myself. And then it's the same conjecture exactly a year later. Again, I made a push, and again, it didn't work. And I was like, So these were strong negative emotions. So fortunately, this conjecture got resolved by David Yang, maybe exactly 20 years later. And looking at his solutions, so his solutions are right on, and I just didn't develop. I could have developed the tools, but I didn't have them. It had to do with Moy Prasad theory, which I didn't learn in grad school, which I should have. I didn't know it, but that's the kind of thing that was needed. He realized that that's the tool that one needs, and he developed it and he proved it.
Okay, so you just said that, okay, the only time you felt negative emotions about math was summer 2002. That's very precise.
No, it was just one example. I just try to avoid. Since then, I've avoided just had this head-on collisions. There are minor frustrations when you try to prove something that you know should be able to do, but somehow you lack the concentration. You spend like pages and pages scribbling, and then it doesn't work out, and then you go home frustrated. That happens, but it's not something deep. It's just kind of daily thing.
On the same page, maybe, could you think about how did your approach to math change during your career?
Good. These are tricky questions. Okay, what do you mean approach to math?
I mean that you can take this question as you wish and answer as you like. Interpret as you wish.
Well, it could be like approaching problems, or everything evolves, right?
Well, which changes have you noticed, maybe?
Well, my memory declined, that's for sure. So in the sense that if I was thinking about something 3 weeks ago and then I switched to another subject, math topic, it would be hard for me to recover what it was 3 weeks ago. Hard means that it would take a day of recollections. If it was 3 months ago, it would take a week of maybe 2 days. And if it was a year ago, it may be lost forever unless I wrote it in an email. So that's kind of, and that may be just brain degeneration, or it may be just that too much is going on, family, whatever, just stuff happens. When you're younger, when you're 30, objectively, there are fewer things in your life. So that's my optimistic scenario of why I was able to retain more. Well, but I guess that's not what you were asking about. So there is this old wisdom, which is kind of very banal, that says that when you age, what you lose in your mental acuity, you compensate it by wisdom. And to some extent it's true. So I definitely, the acuity declines, but at the same time I bang less my head against the wall. I mean, I know that, yeah, just if I try to do it, bash it, it won't work. It just won't work.
Oh, so you became better at predicting.
I'm like, sometimes I'm trying to work something out, and the inner dynamic of my brain tells me that today it won't work. It's just, man, you're not in shape to solve this. Leave it alone. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't be able to. I would continue, get frustrated. I would not answer 150 emails. It will accumulate in my inbox. I would like create all this mess, and I would like spend 3 more days trying to work it out, with more emails accumulating, just not paying bills or whatever. So now I have more of an ability to lay it aside and wait 3 days, let it mature, and then come back to it.
So do you think about it in the back of your brain, or it happens automatically?
You know, it's what David Cardan told us in his interview. I think so. I mean, he had this image of problems maturing for years, but I mean, they can also mature for weeks. Sometimes you have to let it aside for a little bit, for a couple of weeks, or maybe even a couple of days, and there's some process in your brain that kind of tweaks it, and then when you come back to it, it's all ready.
I see. Yeah, there is this magic.
So I showed this particular piece to my wife, and she asked me, "Oh, what is this process of love? What do you mean that you kind of put it aside?" And I couldn't explain it, because I think for us it's very intuitive that in some way this problem is always, well, not always, but like for that period, it's uploaded in your brain. Like it's, I have this, I can feel the physical presence of this problem somewhere here or here. It's really next to my kind of core processor, but I'm not thinking actively about it. It's like just it's uploaded, but it's kind of running in some strange way.
But I think it's true not only for mathematical problems. Like if you're trying to understand a question, which is not just Googling, but I don't know, resolve some non-mathematical problem in your life, I think a solution can also come when you're not thinking about
Oh, I wish I knew how to do that. I never could.
it. Really?
So like, unfortunately, I kind of, this is a theme that recurs as a question to myself over and over, that I don't think I have the capacity of really thinking about anything else. So when I have a question to ponder, which is not math, I just don't know how to do it.
Really, Dennis?
No.
Really?
Yeah. Just the simplest things. I don't have the basic analytical tools to tackle questions.
Okay, that's very interesting. Let's analyze you. So, as Dennis is referring to the interview we did with Kajdan, and David Kajdan told us that he is never analyzing himself. So that would be hard. So let's analyze you instead. So, is it because? Okay, don't worry. It's not painful. Um, so is it because? Well, let's say it's a psychological problem. Is it because you haven't? You think, as an example, is it because you wouldn't have read enough, I don't know, books or texts in psychology, or because you're not interested in thinking about it, or like when you say,
No.
yeah,
Well, I'm not talking about psychology. I mean, it's just sometimes there are questions in life that come up. Maybe practical questions, or kind of strategic long-term questions about your life decisions. It's not just analysis. Even that, I don't know how to think about things.
well, I mentioned psychology because nowadays I think for many practical questions you can just ask AI what to do and AI will tell you what to do. So I wanted to eliminate those cases.
My wife and my son do it very efficiently. I haven't yet done it. So they do ask AI questions. Oh, what should I do today, A or B? And AI says, give them an answer, and most of the times they follow, and they're happy with the outcome. I haven't yet done it.
Okay, leaving aside AI, wait, I was curious. So do you think it's because you're not really interested in those things, or because you haven't read non-math stuff enough? Like why?
Oh, I read. No. I read. I mean, I'm a literature junkie. I all my life I read a lot. No, I read a lot. I mean, fiction. I mean, I only read fiction. I cannot. I don't. So that's one of the problems. It's very hard for me to read nonfiction. Just my brain doesn't engage. I don't know why that is, but just I feel very helpless in applying mental faculties to non-math questions.
Sorry, can I laugh at this? Because
Please, yeah,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
given the success of your applying your mental, what did you say?
I don't know, mental capacities or whatever.
Mental capacities to math problems. I think it is very funny. Uh, but have you also met other people who would say the same, or you would feel the same way about them, or is it just your unique thing?
I'm sure many mathematicians are like this.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But I don't know. To me, it sounds very unrelatable because, of course, I feel much more helpless when I'm in front of a math problem than any other problem which can possibly have a solution.
I'm not a despairing person. It's not helplessness is not the word. I'm just helpless in English means that kind of despondency. I'm not despondent. I feel that I don't have the tools to answer. It doesn't mean that I answer incorrectly. I mean,
Do you think those tools exist somewhere?
interesting. So I don't know. Yeah, at 52 years of age, I should ask myself: Do humans know how to intelligently tackle questions? So there are. I mean, and sometimes, well, what I do, I talk to my friends, and some of my friends tend to be very rational, and that drives me crazy. It's just somehow I think very rational thinking for life questions has defects. You have to throw in some stochastic component of irrationality because, like, life is irrational, unpredictable.
Yeah, they can take it into rational account. So do you prefer when they think about it more emotionally, or?
So my kind of, in many ways, my way of tackling complex problems is to talk to a lot of friends and take some kind of, not to take the average, but just to gain some input and then make a decision.
But that's a good strategy. I think you would be happy to hear that when I first started doing my PhD and I went to my advisor, Mark Levin, with a question in the first few days of my PhD. And I told him I have a question. And he said, which kind of question? And I said, mathematical question, of course. And his answer was, whew, thanks God.
So counter story is that, well, when Jacob Lurie still was at Harvard, we would talk very often, but once in a while he would call me up, pick up the phone. That's the time when people still used phones. Now we don't, right? We text first. So, and then sometimes his opening phrase would be, "I have a non-math question to you." So it's as if like he had to apologize for it being a non-math question, because the default would be just let A be infinity category.
Well, I think it's a similar kind of story. So I guess if it's an apologizing comment, then yeah. I see. Do you have any advice or thoughts on how to get into math if you haven't done it for a while?
How to get back into math
Mhm,
for a practicing mathematician.
mhm.
Let me share a story instead, which is kind of indicative of what my advice would be. So when my first child was born, I was, well, obviously thrown off from like math thinking. Just overwhelming. You barely sleep and so on. Right when he was born, like I think a day, like less than 24 hours later, maybe 12 hours later, I got a call from Drinfeld. I was still in the hospital. I said, like, so Dennis, in lemma 2.3.4, like, what exactly did you mean? I was saying, Volodya, I am in the hospital. I can't possibly focus. But anyway, so we finished that paper. And then there was a period, maybe 2 or 3 months, when I wasn't really doing math. I had to teach. I had this infant at home, and I felt it was kind of difficult to get back into math thinking. And then what happened is that a friend and collaborator of mine, John Francis, so we had a joint paper that we were supposed to write, which we had been postponing, delaying, and then somehow I forgot who, either he or I, decided now it's time, and we got into this working mode. So it wasn't a very complicated paper to write, but I'm really grateful for him that he kind of dragged me into this routine of writing the paper. So, and it was important. Again, it was not something overwhelming. It's something that I knew how to do. I had to figure out a detail here, a detail there. I had to think through a bunch of things, and that's what got me back into motion. But it was very important to have a collaborator who would kind of. You would think of John as not a. I don't know if you know him, like a not. You would not think of him like as an epitome of a gentle person, but in fact he is, and he just in some way gently pushed me into it and got me out of this stagnation. So I mean that's one strategy one can employ to go back into math. So find a collaborator, start working on something not very complicated, but still not routine, that would require a little bit of thought.
Yeah, makes sense. And does math help you to overcome life struggles?
I think in some sense, I'm pretty fortunate. I don't have real life struggles, but like after my accident, like I was in bed for like, I don't know, many months. Well, I could walk, but limping on crutches, it was no fun. The fact that I had math to occupy myself with was extremely important. So if during that period I wasn't able to do math, that would have been very, very hard. But just having a paper to write and also having these wonderful collaborators was amazing. So I woke up I woke up every morning. I just couldn't take a shower or whatever, and then I knew what to do next. So write another section, just answer these guys' emails, and that's what kind of kept my spirits up.
Okay, Dennis, I don't know how to ask you about your recent gigantic success, but of course I'm curious how to work on such a giant project, and also
I just answered. It was the ski accident. I mean, like, it was that. I had nothing else to do. I mean, like, what do you do for like 5 months in bed? I mean, you just write section after section.
well, do you always know what to write? I don't know.
Well, I mean, of course, we had the outline. We knew what the proof was. One had to just write it down. That was a big enterprise, but like, and I was very grateful to have that just to occupy myself with.
But how did you decide to work on something as tough in the first place?
No. I mean, there was no decision. So like, this story was that, well, it had been developing. We were getting closer and closer, and then in 2022, Joachim Tehrmann, I mean, it's a Danish name you can't pronounce, and Sam Raskin. So they proved the key thing after which we knew the thing was within reach. And then also with some few more ideas of Sam, we had a complete proof. So, and then, well, complete proof modulo all the details. And then it was a question of like really writing it down. And as usual, like, I mean, when we say complete proof, better call it outline of a proof. So we knew the major steps, and we believe that all the other steps can be filled in, and that was the work.
Okay, but with this plan modular, Sam and his collaborators result, this plan you came up before, right? Do you want to tell a bit about it?
That had existed maybe 10 years previously. We knew that if you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you'll be able to do the whole thing. So it was this huge structure, the scaffolding with a bar here missing, a bar here missing. But when we knew how to kind of where to take these bars from, we knew how to construct the building.
Okay, I am still asking, maybe more so for my viewers to whom it's maybe not obvious. How do you come up with this skeleton in the first place?
Oh, that was 30 or 25 years of work. It was developing. I mean, so there was this kind of the first skeleton came about in 2006, 2007, and it was very memorable for me. It was Witten's visit to Harvard, and he was talking about his work with Kapustin, and something congealed in my head, and I realized this kind of what I called Kazdan-Lustig versus Whittaker duality, that these two things are Langlands dual to each other, and that one can play them against each other on both sides. So there was this, mathematically, it got translated to what I called later, well, not later, at that period, the fundamental commutative diagram. So it's basically playing Kardashev and Whittaker against each other twice. And then, so that was the basic scaffolding of the structure. And then it was everything else that kind of was built on it, how to make it work.
Okay, so then back to my question. This seemed, okay, back then seems like still a very, very tough question to think about. So doesn't it require a lot of courage to keep
Back
thinking
then in
about it?
2006,
Yeah, to go on
well,
from
it
there.
had been on my mind forever. I mean, I came out of PhD thinking about this. Like it was on my mind all the time. And I had been thinking about it, but just that's the fact that one had this basic structure of Whittaker against Kardashev. So that was the cornerstone of the structure that was later built.
Okay, so if you've been thinking about it forever, then how did it feel to have this work accomplished?
I was fearing that I would be very lost. But fortunately for now, that hasn't happened yet. So maybe the ski accident really helped. Just somehow, I think I was able to just move on to next questions, which maybe not as grand, but I'm not trying even to think about how grand they are. Just, I'm doing math. I mean, like, after all, math is step by step. Even when I was working this, it was still like little step every time. So, and I'm doing other little steps. Maybe they won't amount to something at the end, to something as big, but so what? So it felt okay. Otherwise, I mean, I was fearing it would feel much worse.
Wow, yeah, that sounds great. I wanted to ask you how to not lose interest to math over the many years, but it sounds like you're having happy time with math. So it's actually seems to work.
There was one period. So it's we just moved to Bonn. That's when I got my first COVID, and I never tested positive, but all my family did. So, and I had fever for 1 day, so apparently I had it. But then for a month after, I would open just my notebook, and math wouldn't make any sense. I just couldn't focus at all. So apparently it was this famous mental fog, but I can't know for sure. And I got really scared that, I lost the ability just to do math. It just makes no sense. But then when it went away, it might have been COVID. It might have been just the discombobulation of the move, the new country and everything. But that was scary.
Sounds like COVID.
I
Yeah.
think that's when I met you the first time, by the way. It was like
Really?
July 2022, something like that.
You did not look scared.
Well, it was I would freak out when I would open my notebook and I just not able to I would not be attracted to it. I had no desire to look further into my notebook. That was this kind of scary part. That who am
It's
I?
very impressive that it didn't happen to you outside of COVID. Like, it's very, very, very impressive.
Very lucky, just lucky.
Okay, your brain seems amazing and consistent. So speaking of teaching youngsters, would you like to transfer to your kids love to math, or it's not so important to you?
You see, my dad is a mathematician, and he was trying to teach me math when I was a teenager, and that was kind of limited success because I was not really interested when he tried. And then my sister was born. I was 14, and he was too busy. He left me alone. And that's when I got interested in physics. And then, like 3 years later, I switched to math. I think he feels very good that I became a mathematician eventually, but maybe he would have felt just as good if I became a physicist. I don't know. But my kids, I think my views on this changed since as the kids were growing up. I think it's much more important for me that they just become happy individuals and enjoy what they're doing. I don't really care if it's math. That said, if they really didn't know, I want them to know basic math well. So I don't want them to be illiterate in math. Just that's a priority for me. Like it would be, for some of my friends, it's a priority for their kids to know basic Russian literature. I don't give a damn if my kids know Pushkin or not. Just really don't care. But with math, I do care.
Okay, so basic math means what? Undergrad math, high school math? What is basic math?
High school math. Just I want them to be literate in math.
Huh.
But beyond that, it's okay. Whatever their interests are.
Was it more important for you than them knowing literature?
Good question. No, literature is also important. I mean, like, I think maybe it's even more important for me that they read books. Maybe it's even more important for me if they read specifically Russian lit or some other lit. I don't care.
Okay, I get it.
So yeah, I do want them to read books, and I can't explain. But if you ask me why is it important for me, why is it important that they read books as opposed to just stare at the internet all the time, that I won't be able to answer. So I have debates with my wife that's about these values. I have these values, but like I can't really rationalize why is it so important to read books. It's been important for me. I don't know. I think it's important, but I can't really explain why.
Could you tell us about your favorite books or authors? Or I know these are like two generic questions, but anything about your love to literature?
Well, see, I'm not a young person. I've read many books. Just okay. There's the first book that surfaced like in my mind when you asked the question. A Suitable Boy by Vikram Saif, Indian British author, and it's the volume that thick. And so I remember I was given it by a friend on my second or third visit to Tata Institute in Bombay. So I arrived and I finished the book that I had with me, and I asked someone, "Can you give me a book?" And he brought me this volume, which is like 1,200 pages long. And he said, "Are you crazy? I'm not going to finish it. You just wait." And then like 3 days later, you are on page 300 and you forget everything. And your worst fear is that what will happen to your life when this book comes to an end. And then I gave this book to multiple friends. I remember I gave it to Sasha Belenson, and he had exactly the same reactions. Like, you are like 100 pages before the end and you freak out because all your life is there.
Wow.
So the author, how to put it mildly, had obviously read Tolstoy well, but it's not plagiarism by any stretch.
Wow. No, I
So-
haven't read it.
No, highly recommended.
Sounds scary.
Yes, scary, yes. Especially when you combine it to a visit to India. Well, I don't know what India is now. That was 20 years ago. The country has changed.
I mean, it's still India.
I don't know. People say that it changed so much that I don't know. But like back then, it was extremely interesting to see like compare what you read about 1947 to what it looked like 50 years later.
I mean, people always say that places have changed so much, but I think if a place had a lot of charm, this charm usually stays even if it evolves.
True, but there's also a question of your ability to access the charm. Not your ability, but like as a visitor. So like the country can build a tourist infrastructure that will kind of impede your access to like the more raw parts of the country, which was the most interesting part.
Well, actually, so when I was traveling in India, I've been several times, but one of those times, okay, to the viewers, it's my favorite destination to travel for holidays. I haven't been there for math-related reasons yet, but I adore India very much. So I went there one time for New Year holidays, and I imagined there would be lots of tourists. And so back then we didn't have AI, so I was like reading how's it called? Book with advice for tourists.
The Rough Guide, or
Yeah,
Lonely
something like
Planet.
that, like a guidebook. And the guidebook said like, "Oh, these are places which are like less popular by tourists." So I tried to choose those places because I imagined there would be like lots of tourists. So we come to those places according to my uh, well prepared route, and in those places, people have never seen a white person. So those were like completely untouristy places, and this was not the level of lack of tourists that I imagined. Like we haven't seen a white person for a week.
I mean, so back then when my wife and I traveled around, so we were we would only travel by local buses, most of which didn't have windows and things like that. And it was, you engaged in conversations with people. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I still did that a few years ago, Dennis.
Okay, good to know.
It's still all possible. I remember first time taking such a bus, and to take it costs like, I don't know, 2 rupees, and I only had like 50 rupees and 100 rupees and 200, and the driver didn't have a change, and a woman there paid for me, and I felt so embarrassed because, these are like people who don't have much money, and I felt so much shame, and I was worried, and she said, "Don't worry, India is not about money, it's about love."
Yeah, that's the spirit that I remember.
Okay, so you told us about books, but what are your other interests besides math and literature, if any?
Well, you know about them. I mean,
Dennis, it's
then
an interview
yeah,
that is
yeah, I
being
know, I
watched
know, I know, I know, I
by
know, I know. You know that. So
1,000
I
of
mean,
your friends.
yeah. So well, you know that I dance tango, although in later years I have more and more physical impediments for this, like my knee injury, back pain, and everything. It really seriously impedes me. But I try to do that. I really enjoy it, and it's a tango is a very strange thing. It's and because I was older when I started engaging with it, I was more conscious. I could analyze better my own transformations. So before initially it was just fascination with the music. I would hear tango music and just all my nerves would like. Um, and so in later years, it's also about music, but it's more it about a very particular type of physical expression of this music and dance. I'm afraid that the way I dance tango is very unconventional. I'm afraid that it's really not quite tango what I do, but maybe it's my own inferiority complex. But like, I do some in the best scenario, I do some very intense physical thing when I try to express nuances in music with kind of very intense physical movements. And when I'm able to do this with the right partner and when my own physical shape allows me, this is very acute pleasure. So that's what you were asking about math. Like this is the really spike of happiness. You have this 3 minutes, you feel extremely happy.
Wow. Is it specific to tango or to fall dances?
So I've never danced anything else.
Mm.
So I don't know. I mean, but people tell me that tango is really different from everything else, and I kind of believe it.
Dennis, are there any questions that you would like me to ask you about and I haven't asked?
To be honest, I was anticipating, but it's not that I wanted you to ask. I was trying to imagine, like, second guess you, but there's nothing specific that I want you to ask me.
I can't.
There are many things I can say, but it's
Well.
so. There's one thing I wanted to react to in Dustin's interview,
Go
if I
for it.
may. So you asked him about the structure of math community, and he said, look, one thing that really didn't make sense for him is the structure of grants for mathematicians. Remember? So, and I kind of wanted to second that. So I really wish we could do away with grants because, they do make sense for other sciences, for physics, on experimental physics, biology, chemistry, because people really have projects and they have to do experiments. But we don't really have projects. I mean, when you write your research proposal that I'm going to prove theorem A, but x equals y, either you know how to prove it, then it's done, or you don't know how to prove it. You cannot say that I will prove this theorem. It makes no sense. We prove what we can, and I really don't think it's. I think it would be exactly as Dustin said. It would be better to redistribute this money more homogeneously among institutions than to give it to individuals for projects. And like in the US, there's this NSF. Well, it goes to supporting graduate students, but I do think the graduate students should be supported institutionally, not through grants. Also, it goes to this summer salary, but that's also ridiculous. Why should we get an additional ninth? Like, I write a cool research proposal and I get a boost on my salary. That kind of makes no sense to me.
Thank you for saying this. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if I'm right, but I'm of the same opinion as Dustin that I think grants keep them for sciences, but not for math.
I think I meant you're right that this definitely should be revisited in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the way it originated in the U.S. is because, well, math was lumped together with other sciences. And that's how it came about, but it shouldn't have been.
Okay, Dennis, I'll gonna stop torturing you soon, but here's a question that you probably did not anticipate. What are your favorite animals?
Spotted hyena.
Wow.
Hmm.
See, so glad I asked.
Yeah, so we saw a bunch of them in South Africa. We were in Kruger National Park and had a picture of of spotted hyena cubs as a screensaver of my laptop. And then that laptop retired and I don't have it anymore, but like I could really relate. Very strong jaws.
Do you know there is a town in Ethiopia, I think, where hyenas are
Sacred. No.
not only sacred, no, no, they are domesticated in the sense that they come to humans to take food from human hands.
It's very hard to believe. I think it's, well, at least in South Africa, I think it's the second in the food chain, so just beneath the lion. So
Yeah, yeah.
hyena.
So BBC filmed this. So there is this series called Planet Earth 2, which I admire very much. So they filmed this. I don't know if they were spotted or unspotted hyenas, but indeed, this is just one place, one specific town where they have a many, many, many years history of doing it. So hyenas got trained to come to humans.
I mean, I still have this image in front of my eyes. We were driving and we saw this mother hyena running with a big hunk of meat hanging from her mouth. She was obviously tore it from some prey and was bringing it to her den, to her cubs. Might have been her cubs that we saw kind of further down the road, 4 of them. Yes, and one of them just went around our car, so they were.
Well, okay, that's cool. Dennis, which advice would you give to young mathematicians?
Okay, let me share 2 things. So a lot of people, not a lot, some people ask me, "Oh, should I or should I not should I or should I not become a mathematician?" And so, like, here is my answer. So you should become a mathematician is if and only if without math your life will be miserable. It's a definition by exclusion. So if you think you'll be happy making money on Wall Street, go for it. Or doing AI. But if you feel that something will always lack in your life if you don't do math, then that's the necessary and sufficient condition for choosing math as a profession. That's number one. And also what I get asked sometimes is that, so a young person meets another young person who is so much better. And then this first person thinks, well, why should I stay in math? Because there is this guy. So the answer is that that's not good enough reason to quit. I mean, for every one of us, except for perhaps my next door office neighbor, there is always someone who is better. I mean, it's always, but like as Grothendieck writes, I mean, like he himself, he didn't view himself as a stronger mathematician. I mean, he said that many of his peers were more talented for math, but each one of us can bring something, maybe something which is not less valuable than the next guy who is more talented.
Or
And
girl.
kind of a girl, yes, exactly. So I mean, our raw power to solve problems is not the only factor, or vision. I mean, it's doing math is such a complex enterprise that you don't even know what's hidden in you. So that is, if you enjoy it, stay with it. Don't be intimidated by this guy or that girl who's better.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mauro.